I drove a Cadillac. Well, Elvis, he had it all. They say he was the
Yeah, they said he was the king, but how happy he was when he left the scene. I don't know. Welcome into the Friday edition of Strategies for a Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan, and down at the other end of the broadcast table, I was just talking to my daughter, my oldest daughter. I have two of them. I was just talking to my oldest daughter about how feisty you are.
Is that a good thing?
I think that's a good thing. The feisty and sparkly PLPC Carla McCormick. How you doing, Carla?
Hey, everybody. Hi, Dave. I'm great. It's the end of my birthday week.
Did we officially do the birthday song in a big way for her?
Oh yeah, it was a birthday song and an anniversary song for me in the same jump.
So we don't.
Yeah.
You're saying we don't get to sing again? That's what you're saying?
I think
not?
I think we've done enough.
Okay. And welcome to the program, our ace producer. He is the ace of the airways. You know him in the morning as Rapid Ruben Wright. But he keeps us on the air flying high, low, and in between.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. And
I have the camera on me today. I just noticed.
Give a big wave. The camera needs to be.
Everybody asks me about that, Ruben. They say, "Why can't we see Ruben?"
There's no need.
Yeah, there is a need.
Everybody found out that there was no need.
No, there is a need. We've talked about this before, and do you notice, Carla, that he put the camera? I don't remember. This has been several weeks ago, but he put the camera on him for a little while, and then he took it off again. He was sly about it, right?
Well, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, well.
So, and I signed up for a radio show, not a TV show, so I don't know how this happened,
don't know how
but
this
okay.
happened, but it did happen. We're going to kind of go all over the place this evening. First of all, we're going to consider the scientific reasons that people make bad decisions when they fall in love. There's a scientific reason, it turns out.
Well, let's do tell.
Kind of related to that, I found an article about the safest and most dangerous states for online dating.
I think people will be surprised at the facts.
Where is Louisiana? Where's Texas? Where's Arkansas? Because that's our we are the
coverage
architects. Area. Yeah. So where do we stand? Also, it is past mid-July. If you have a college student that is about to, if you had a high school graduate and the summer is almost over, you are looking forward to sending your young person off to college. How do you stay in touch with your college student? So we'll tackle that and maybe more this evening on Strategies for Living. Thank you for joining us, folks. We are presented by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. And, by the way, speaking of that, Bill Rose, the Executive Director of CADA, is going to be our guest on Tuesday evening.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I think the last time he was here, I was absent, so...
Yeah, so
that'd be great.
we will welcome him next week. And on Thursday, we will welcome Denisa Walker from Learning RX. So and so we're also brought to you by Learning RX. We're brought to you by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Milestones Counseling Center, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. We will come back and dive in to the scientific reason that Carla makes bad decisions when she falls in love.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into this edition of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan with PLPC Carla McCormick. We fall in love, right? I mean, it's a deal. And
it's a chemical reaction.
It's interesting because we have one word and one word only for love in the English language, and yet there are different types of love, and I don't know that we do enough talking about the distinction between, let's call it, falling in love is, let's call that romantic love,
okay,
versus the decision that you have to make as to, is this person that you're considering a partnership with, is it a fit? Because you can fall in love with people that it just doesn't, no. What are you talking about? No. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. And the reason is because you just said it. Falling in love, romantic love, is it's more biological than it is anything else. I like the way, I reference him a lot because, he's one of my heroes. M. Scott Peck in The Road Less Traveled talked about this in terms of ego boundaries. And he makes the distinction between romantic love as a collapsing of the ego boundaries. We all have
right.
We're all born Buddhist, right? We think the world is us and we're the world. We're all born Buddhist. I mean, with all deference to our guest last evening, but when then we develop an ego, we understand by the time we begin to understand at 1.5, 2 years old, that we're separate from our mommies and daddies and everything else. We are a separate entity, a separate being, and we form ego boundaries around us. Mm-hmm. And those stay pretty much intact. In fact, we build on them until the point that we come along, some of us 12, 13, 14, you and I are Catholics, so for us it may have been, later,
a little bit
later, depending on how.
19.
What was the Billy Joel song? The Catholic girls, the line
start much too late.
Much too late. Yeah, that's it. But anyway, when we fall in love, Peck says the ego boundaries just collapse around us, and we mesh together, we merge together, but that there's no real sense to that. That eventually the ego boundaries are going to come back up. Right? And then we're going to have to make a decision. And he distinguishes real love as, instead of a collapsing of the ego boundaries, a conscious stretching of the ego boundaries for your own or for another's spiritual development.
So that would have to happen after the romantic love.
Yeah. It could. I guess it could happen during, if you were aware. Again, but I think the key is you have to be aware of what's really going on. So, against all of that, I found this interesting article that is written by Dr. Alicia Clark from Your Tango, and was also published in News Cred Publisher Network. The article is entitled "The Scientific Reason People Make Bad Decisions When They Fall in Love." So it's as if the world stops. Life as we know it has just shifted. It's changed, improved. We're suddenly enchanted, a better version of ourselves. Everything suddenly feels different, better, alive. All we want to do is be with our partner. Nothing is more important than cultivating our growing new reality, us. We've never felt happier, more exhilarated, or more ourselves. We pinch ourselves to make sure it's real and it's not a dream. We are in love. Okay, so that is what Peck is talking about when he's saying the ego boundaries have collapsed. We are merged with another human, and that's not necessarily going to make a lot of sense. You know, you can fall in love with people that it just doesn't, that you can't make it make rational sense, right?
Right.
Okay. So the article goes on to say, falling in love in some ways feels like the ultimate trust fall game. You ever done that?
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
did that when we were in school.
You ever done that, Reuben? You ever done the trust fall where you get on a picnic table and people behind you, and you have to fall backwards? You ever done that?
When I was about 100 pounds lighter, yes.
Yeah. I love it. That it's a rush, isn't it? I mean, it's a total rush.
Yeah, and it's fear.
Yeah. But trusting our partner enough to allow ourselves to fall, to let go. The falling is thrilling, but being held is intoxicating. So intoxicating that we don't want to stand back up. And this is where we might find ourselves forgetting, or at least setting aside, routines and habits that we know are good for us. Nothing feels as important or fulfilling as our partner, and biologically speaking, this is by design. Here comes the science. This is by design, according to research by Helen Fisher and Lucy Brown. Discarding other interests and goals allows us biologically to bond with our partners so strongly that we will stick with each other and ideally create and raise offspring. Yeah, kind of makes sense, doesn't
Right?
it?
Birds and the bees.
Yeah, yeah. Anthropologically speaking, mating might be the most important thing we do to ensure our survival and, of course, the survival of our species. So important is romantic love to our species' survival, Fisher argues, that our brain allows us to put aside almost all other obligations and needs just long enough to ensure for this possibility, 18 to 24 months. And
Long enough to procreate.
Yeah, 1.5 to 2 years. That's exactly, I'm remembering from The Road Less Traveled. I'm remembering that's exactly, the Peck says that the romantic love, that what he calls the collapsing of the ego boundaries, is going to last somewhere between 6 months, 2 years. He may even stretch it out to 3 years.
So I have a question, Mr. Marriage and Family Therapist.
Of course you do.
How many couples, when you work with couples in therapy, what's the average amount of time they've been married before they come to therapy?
In my
In
practice,
experience.
in my experience, probably approaching the average. The mean is probably around 7 years.
So well past the 1.5 to 2
Oh
years.
yeah. I mean, and I tell you, I have a significant, and there's something to this. There's something to this idea of the 7-year itch, because it's like cycles. So there's another bump that I've noticed right at around the 15-year point. So now this is plus or minus several years on both sides, but the around the 7-year point, around the 14, 15-year point, around the 20-year point. And this makes sense if you think about this against what happens in what's happening in the life, in life, in real life.
Right.
I'll have to get we need to do a program. As a matter of fact, there's a book on my shelf at the office that when you get a chance, sneak in and get.
Okay.
And it's called The 7 Marriages Within Your Marriage. And the author talks about
these cycles,
and he talks about if you're married long enough, if you stay married long enough, that you'll go through about 7 cycles, and at each cycle, he argues, there is a couple has to navigate through these cycles. These at each point, there's pressure that is brought upon the union, and so, i.e. the 7-year itch. You kind of get it at 7 years, at 14 years, at 21 years,
right.
at 28 years. And so he says, if the marriage is truly successful, there's 7 marriages within your marriage. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got you off topic, but it just was
Well,
interesting to me.
it's its own topic actually. So maybe you'll go into the office one day and grab that book, and
I will do that.
We'll do a program coming back off of this, the 7 marriages within your marriage. Okay, so we are talking about the scientific reason that people make bad decisions when they fall in love. We got this set up. We will come back. We'll talk more, and then we'll talk about the safest and most dangerous states that you can be in if you are falling in love, especially online. We'll be back.
Bum, bum.
I love a man, I leave him alone.
So very important, this romantic love thing that we're talking about. Why do fools fall in love? The scientific reason people make bad decisions when they fall in love. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan here on Strategies for Living on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. And Ruben right along for the ride, just holding on, trying to...
Doing my best to hold on.
Yeah, well, yeah. Hang on, buddy, hang on.
Keep us out of the mountains.
Exactly. So, floating along the current of this intoxicating new love, Carla and Ruben, can take us to new and wonderful places. We've all felt that, right? We've been there, but it can also tempt us to put aside things like self-care and other responsibilities that are important to our happiness and well-being. We put these things off but it doesn't work. As we avoid important aspects of our life, we start to feel unsettled, irritable, even resentful at the very responsibilities themselves, that they somehow can't be shared or definitely ignored like we might wish that they could be, and even anxious about how we will be able to balance the needs of the relationship against our own personal needs. It feels so good to be loved and to take care of that it can feel hard then to take care of ourselves. Love can do this. It can trick us into thinking that we are done being responsible for our health and wellness. But without our health and wellness, our love will, of course, suffer too. The key is to listen to that whispering anxiety telling you what you've let slide for too long. You know where your life is tipping out of balance, and you know what you need to do. Maybe it's paying your bills. Maybe it's cutting your grass. Maybe it's doing your laundry. Maybe it's buckling down on a work or a school project that you've been putting off, or making time to see a friend or family member that you've been neglecting. Perhaps your target should be healthier food choices and getting back to the gym a few mornings a week instead of cuddling there in bed. Creating boundaries that allow you to reclaim your individual needs allows you to be the healthiest person you can be, which in turn keeps the relationship strong and healthy. But this one is hard to negotiate, isn't it? It's hard to negotiate within ourselves, and sometimes it's hard to negotiate, because our partner, there's two people that the ego boundaries have dropped. And here's the interesting thing. The ego boundaries may start to rise a little more in one than the other, right? They may not do it at the same time.
Right. So that enmeshment may not last if my boundaries start to come back before yours, and then you're going to feel neglected, and then you're going to. But so I kind of like, my mind is going in a different direction here. So
of course it is.
So you get this rush of chemicals. You get all of these things, all of these good, feel-good things that you feel when you fall in love that make you throw caution to the wind, right?
Yeah.
This is what happens when people make bad decisions about relationships from the start. This is how people fall in love with their bosses or their coworkers, or there's somebody that gives them attention.
Sure.
Because normally thinking, sane people can lose their minds.
Well, but again, if the ego boundaries are collapsed, I mean, you in some ways you have lost falling in love. Romantic love is losing your mind.
So that's why sane people make insane choices when it comes to romantic love.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole science behind it.
Exactly, and that's what this article is putting forth, and I think that's the important thing, and it's one of the things that that we try to do on an ongoing basis is to make to make good sense, to help people understand, and I think to understand. I mean, hey. This is falling in love is wonderful. Romantic love is wonderful. I recommend it, don't you?
Yeah, highly.
Yeah, but you don't. You want to understand, and I mean that's the value of articles like this. I think it's the value of these kinds of programs, that we are at the same time conscious and aware. Okay, I can enjoy this ride, but I need to understand that it's a ride. I can't tell you how many people. Back to the question you asked, when do people come in? I can't tell you, Carla, how many people have, through the 27 years I've been in practice, have come in at 7 years out, 14 or 15 years out, 20 years out, and more. I think the longest I had a couple come in that were over 50 years married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you get them, you see a bunch, but what you hear is a variation of the same thing. we're not in love anymore, or I'm not in love with him anymore, or I'm not in love with her anymore. That's why we have to talk about this stuff, because, we need to understand the difference between falling in love or romantic love and real love. And see, that's what I think my boy Peck does a great job of talking about in terms of the ego boundaries. And in real love, it's a conscious choice, a conscious decision to stretch those ego boundaries for my own personal growth or for the personal spiritual growth of the other.
Well, and you often talk in one of your analogies when you're talking about things, you talk about backing up. So, if you find yourself in a humdrum relationship and then all of a sudden you start feeling sparks and things for someone else outside of your marriage, that's a good time to back up and realize, hang on a second, everything I'm feeling is not may not be true love.
Right.
It may just be
maybe romantic.
Just chemicals and science.
And it's not that that's not true.
Right.
I mean, it's not that that's not real. That's not what we're saying. It's real.
It's real.
It's true. It
just may not be what you think it is.
Right.
It may be something else.
Yeah.
Another animal entirely.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And romantic love, falling in love with somebody, does not necessarily mean that person makes the best mate for you. Maybe it's just enjoy the ride for a little while,
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And no. I mean, again, it's God. If God created us, and God created all of us, that includes this biology and all these chemicals that we're talking about, right?
Right.
And one of these weeks we are going to do a sexuality week, and we're going to push some. I know we're going to push some buttons and push some boundaries, but and I'll probably do it this evening when I say what I'm about to say. But I don't think it's an accident that at the moment of orgasm, even atheists say, "Oh God," I don't think that's by coincidence, right? There's no coincidence, because that's the connect. I mean, and again, I don't know how to eloquently tie all of this in together. But I think that, again, it's all tied in, isn't it?
Right. And it is a beautiful thing.
It's a wonderful thing. And it's a spiritual thing, too.
And it's something to be enjoyed.
Exactly. And if God didn't want us to enjoy that,
He wouldn't have made it so enjoyable.
Exactly. Well said. Creating boundaries that allow you to reclaim your individual needs is okay. It can be frustrating, but it's also okay to push through. Do it anyway. Getting started might be hard, but tending to your needs will set you up to feel less anxiety, more balance, and in turn can strengthen the relationship. Balance is the goal when it comes to translating romantic love into a lasting love. So in this article, she's distinguishing between romantic love and lasting love, what Peck would call romantic love versus real love. The love between two healthy individuals is what sets the stage for lasting love and the life partnership we so want. So, what do you think? Scientific backup that we can make bad decisions when we fall in love, but we don't have to if we understand the process and what's going on.
And I think that's the point that she's trying to make. There's nothing new here. It's just, I think what she's saying is stop and pay attention.
Yeah.
And if you fall in love and you start to feel, like you're losing yourself and you're becoming anxious or resentful, take a look at it. And I mean, how often do we talk about boundaries, though? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how important they are. They come up in every part of our life. What are your boundaries, and knowing your boundaries and understanding healthy boundaries?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so you want to put yourself out there, right?
All righty.
All right, so you've made that courageous step. You're putting yourself out there online. You're ready for this romantic love thing.
I'm going into internet dating.
Yeah, and there's the apps. There's Tinder, the websites like OkCupid. So what are the safest and most dangerous places for online dating? This is an article that was posted by Rachel Oakes. She's her catchphrase. The author Rachel Oakes. Her catchphrase is "I'm a Google that." Go-getter writer has a talent for finding incredible and bizarre facts out on the web, and she's happy to pass her knowledge on. So I picked up this site, I think, from highspeedinternet.com, I think was my source. At any rate, so you want to know whether you need to be extra careful protecting yourself when you're going out with people who are virtual strangers. So how do our states rank? Our listening area is Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas.
If Louisiana's red, is that bad?
Yeah. In fact, and Arkansas is just as red as Louisiana. So just to look ahead, I think Arkansas is number 46. Louisiana is number 48 in terms of, I guess, the higher it is, the more dangerous it is. So, unfortunately, yet again, in Louisiana here, we don't do so well. But we'll come back and talk about that. Texas, however, isn't blue, so it's not one of the safest places, but it's not bright red either.
It's kind of purple.
Yeah, it's kind of purplish. I think it's number 22. So we'll come back and we'll talk about we'll talk about the safest and most dangerous states for online dating and getting together and playing Barry. And I don't know about that, baby. How about you, Ruben? You know about that? Yeah, love.
I don't know if I know about that.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to love and make love and all that stuff, baby. I love Barry White. Yeah, you got to let this go, Ruben. You got to let. Come on, he's building up to it. See, he's doing it. He's doing it. Here he goes. Oh, it's coming. Oh God.
Ruben.
So you think I'm feeling my oats, huh?
I'm a little
You
bit
worried?
worried about
a little
you.
worried about me?
A little bit.
Ruben is too. He had his hand on the. I noticed he had his hand on the red button there as I was backing up. But anyway, welcome back into Strategies for a Living. 101.7 FM and 710 Keel. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, and we are discussing now the safest and most dangerous states for online dating. The article says we weren't surprised by many of the results since a lot of the states landed in the same place. They did this study last year. One of the biggest differences this year's data is Washington, D.C. didn't make our list since the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention didn't release information on sexually transmitted diseases for Washington, D.C. Just know that the results for D.C. last year were really, really, really bad.
Oh, no.
And it's unlikely that they got much better this year. But from the information that they did have access to, there are numerous statistical changes that are important to point out, from the safest states for online dating to the most dangerous. So the safest states for online dating, if you intend to date online only in the safest of states, where do you think you need to move, Carla?
Looks like I need to move to the Northeast.
Yeah. You could move to Vermont. You could move to Maine, New Hampshire. You know, back in the day, years and years ago, when you and I first met, we took a trip out towards Idaho, and we met on a boat.
We were in Utah.
We were in Utah, weren't we?
We sure were.
Yeah, and so Idaho and Utah made the list. Each of these states reprised its role as one of the 5 safest states to date in. So the top 5: Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, Idaho, and Utah. Vermont reigns supreme, did last year, did again. Maine and New Hampshire kept their top spots as well. However, there was a flip between Idaho and Utah. So a notable outbreak of chlamydia. How do you say that? Chlamydia in Utah. Chlamydia. Yeah, I guess that's the way to say it. So what do these top states have in common? Well, there's not a whole lot. For instance, Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire are the top 3 for oldest average population in the U.S. Maybe that says something. Utah has the youngest average population. Idaho is only 4 places behind. So while dating wisdom may come with age for the top 3 states, Utah and Idaho are likely placing for a completely different reason. The trait Utah and Idaho share is their sizable Mormon populations. Mormons, a nickname for those who belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, hold a firm stance on abstinence before marriage. So dating in these states mean you're a lot less likely to get an STD. Of course, I guess you're also a lot less likely to get laid.
I'm sorry, folks.
Yeah. So Vermont and Maine, the 2 least religious states in the U.S., appear to have more hookup-friendly solution. Solution. Unlike Idaho, both mandate sex and HIV education, and unlike Utah, don't require a parental consent to teach it to students. The fact that Vermont and Maine include contraception education can't hurt, they say, with transmitting fewer STDs either. It's a bit more difficult to compile data on New Hampshire's sex education requirements because the granite state leaves many curriculum decisions up to officials on the local level. However, New Hampshire's governor recently signed a bill that will require schools to inform parents when their students are being taught sex education. So it would be interesting to see if that bill adversely affects New Hampshire's reputation. Okay, on to the most dangerous states for online dating. Unlike the safest states, the most dangerous states have changed a bit from last year's study. In addition to moving up a spot due to the absence of Washington, D.C., this year's data, New Mexico climbed a spot due to its increase in violent crime and STDs. It's important to note that STDs and violent crime are often linked. Domestic violence greatly increases the likelihood of STD transmissions, and experiencing violence can lead to many mental and physical health problems throughout a victim's life. So, taking it from the top, Alaska remains the most violent and STD-ridden state. the least densely populated state is a tough place to police, and it's only going to get worse due to its shrinking resources for the Department of Law. So if you're looking for love in Alaska,
Maybe.
yeah, maybe
Don't.
Carla's advice is don't. Meanwhile, Nevadans are most likely to fall victim to cybercrime, with more confidence fraud and personal data breaches per capita than any other state. You're going to want to look out for catfishing and make extra strong passwords if you live in Nevada.
So what were the top 5 most dangerous states?
So the top 5 were Alaska, New Mexico, Louisiana, Nevada, and Arkansas. So
wow.
in our, we said, of course, in our listening areas, Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. So unfortunately, 2 of the states in our listening area made the most dangerous list. Despite being among the most religious states after Utah, Louisiana and Arkansas both ranked high for STDs and violent crime per capita. Other studies have shown that Louisiana and Arkansas are also hotbeds for teen pregnancy. But this is more than just an issue of not living what you're taught on Sundays. Arkansas and Louisiana are among the 5 poorest states in the United States, with no contraception education and only 2 Planned Parenthood health centers each. It's likely many residents aren't receiving any education or assistance that they need to practice safe sex. There's an honorable mention here to improve the scoring that they did last year. They adjusted the cyber crimes included in the study to reflect only those pertinent to online dating. That means we're focusing on romance frauds, threats of violence, personal data breaches, and crimes committed on social media. For most states, that didn't change their rankings, but North Carolina jumped up 8 ranks. To give it props, North Carolina has done a bit better in the areas that they measure, but the biggest cyber crime in the Tar Heel State is non-payment, non-delivery, and since online shopping isn't tied directly to dating, North Carolina shot up through the ranks after they adjusted their analysis for that. Also, a dishonorable mention, and it's close to us, Mississippi has seen a huge spike in both chlamydia and gonorrhea cases. Went from being the 5th worst state for STDs, trailing significantly behind North Carolina and Louisiana, to being number 2, right behind Alaska. So with its relatively low violent crime and cybercrime rates, Mississippi still isn't the worst state for online dating, but until it allows more talk about contraception and STIs, STDs in the schools without explicit permission from the State Department of Education, it probably won't climb back into the ranks anytime soon. Online dating can be a lot of fun, and you can meet some amazing people, but I think you have to stay aware of there are dangers that you can encounter out there. It's part of the process. And so you got to take measures to protect yourself. Don't give out too much personal information. Always be sure to tell a friend when you're going to go meet someone new. Somebody else needs to know where you are. At the very least, call Ruben. Tell him where you are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. And don't don't be a fool. Cover it.
And I would say, parents, educate your kids.
Yeah.
We don't do that maybe very well in the school, and I think what I see jumping out here is that, there's a lack of education. So,
amen.
Teaching your kids about sex doesn't make them have more sex.
No.
The science. No. One day we'll have that scientific study.
Definitely.
Because the science shows that.
Definitely. You gotta love our boy. Listen to this.
With all the unwanted pregnancies and STDs, you never want to go rawhide. Not around here, anyway.
I so love Ruben Wright. I really do. We'll be back.
He's the best.
All the things I'm missing, good fiddles, love and kissing, are waiting at the end of my ride. Love is just a game that everybody plays.
Let's do it.
Yeah, if I knew the words, I'd be singing. I'd be singing there with Ruben.
He's doing so good.
He is. Welcome back into Strategies for a Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. I'll give him top billing because he's done so good tonight. Rapid Ruben Wright here on Strategies, and PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan. So, all right. So we've talked about, we didn't get to the college students. We'll do that next week.
Yeah, we need to have a whole show about
Yeah, we
that
probably
anyway.
do. We probably need to have an entire show. So we've talked about the scientific reason that people make bad decisions when they fall in love, and we've talked about the safest and most dangerous states for online dating. So I know you have something to say. Do I need to buckle my seatbelt here?
No, it's not that political. All I really want to remind people, and parents especially, is you can teach kids about sex and about safe sex and about just about sex in general, and not go against your moral or your religious beliefs.
Absolutely not.
And I don't have the study.
The home is a great place to do it.
And you want to teach them more than you want someone else teaching them, because you can talk to them in a way that no one else can. And also, I don't have the science in front of me, but what I learned in my education is teaching kids about sex does not make them have more sex.
Right.
It just doesn't happen that way.
Right. Right.
So, being afraid to talk about it because you think you're going to open some can of worms, and then all of a sudden they're going to go crazy now because they know it's just not true.
The statistics don't show that at all.
Not even close.
Yeah. So have the talk.
Have the talk.
Yeah.
Have the talk. And if you're afraid to have the talk to some trained professional about how to have the talk.
We talk about that. That would be a legitimate thing to if you have some ideas or you questions about that, be a good time to pick up the phone, get yourself an appointment with an LPC or a LMFT and go talk.
How do I have a talk? How do I talk to my kids about sex?
How do I do the talk? Yeah. And you never know. You might really benefit from that talk yourself. Yeah. So good job, Ruben.
Happy
good job,
Friday,
Carla.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
And hope the weekend holds a lot of fun and a lot
hot.
of 106 today.
Ooh.
Whoa.
I'll be in the AC.
Yes, you will. Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for a Living. We have been presented this evening, as always, by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. I've been helping individuals and families for 60 years now. Don't forget Bill Rose from CADA will be with us one day next week. We're also brought to you by Milestones Counseling Center, by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call to make, who would you call? What would you say? Why are you waiting? Make the call. For Rapid Ruben Wright, for PLPC Carla McCormick, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. We'll see you next week here on Strategies for Living.